There are stories that connect us to ourselves and to each other. These stories reveal who we are and show us the many vivid colors of our truth. Welcome to Soul Wanderings, where we raise spiritual awareness and foster connections through these shared stories and personal experiences. Now, exclusively on KGRA Digital Broadcasting, your hosts, AJ and Natalie.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Soul Wanderings.
Yes.
I'm AJ.
I'm Natalie.
And we're your hosts of Wandering Wednesdays on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Happy to be here. As always.
As always, it's so true.
Isn't it so good? I am so grateful. I love doing Soul Wanderings. First and foremost, I have to let everyone know that we are back on Facebook. So head over there if that's where you like to hang out. If not, we're also on Rumble, on X, KGRA Digital Broadcasting, and of course on live.kgradb.com. So wherever you're hanging out, welcome, welcome.
Maybe we had some people switch over from Facebook to the other platforms when Facebook wasn't available.
I do believe that was a thing. Yeah.
That
people were using other platforms. I think that is fantastic.
So true.
I noticed there was a chat room in X. I didn't know that. I haven't spent a lot of time there, but all of these really cool places that we can hang out together. So beautiful. So hi, Natalie.
Oh, I'm good. It's a little bit different being at home, but you know, I miss being right in the same room as you, but
we're spoiled. Let's face it.
Yes.
We just are. We are one of the shows that have access to the KGRA studios, one of them. And we just are very lucky that way. So we get spoiled, and then sometimes we get to be in our homes. And I'm totally comfy tonight. Am I wearing pants? I guess we'll never know. That's the joy of doing things at home.
That's right. Good to be in your relax wear.
Well, you know, pajamas are good. Stretchy pants.
It's
Stretchy
true.
pants for the win.
I had to this is usually where one of my cats hangs out, and she got kicked out because otherwise there'll be a cat on the screen. Cats are curious creatures, so.
I don't know anything about that.
Right.
Yeah. So, what's going on? How's your week been?
Boy, my week's been good. I was pondering some things, and for some reason I was thinking about a couple of concepts, and today I was thinking about control. So I am actually structured. So I was. It started with the thought about fluidity. So I had a little hiccup in my schedule today where I've been working on getting connected with this client, and the client happens to be in the UK, and so there's this time difference, and it's just been not connecting, and it didn't connect today. But I've really learned in my life to be really fluid in the flow of life, and that led me to bringing in the concept of control. That so often we want to control what's happening. Life is always presenting us with its own show, if we want to say that. Its own, the flow of life has its own rhythm, its own pace, its own doing, especially when you're trying to connect with another person that has their own lifestyle. So I've never really needed to have a lot of control. I mean, in various aspects, but I definitely like to drive. So I guess that's a little bit of the way I like to be the driver's seat in a car. So I was thinking about fluidity and control, and how life often will ask of us to be fluid. And many times people will be not comfortable or just not want to be fluid, and how that can cause a lot of stress. And so, as I like to talk about, what gets in people's ways. And that's one thing that can get in people's way. So with this, instead of being really frustrated and upset, because there's been issues with my connection with this person and her connection with me today, then I'm just like, okay, so it's not happening today. Otherwise it would already be happening. And so I'm just going with the flow. And we just rescheduled, and I saw what else came along and didn't have to fill up 5 minutes.
It just gets to be.
It just gets to be. And that was actually kind of nice because I put another time on the schedule, and it gives another opportunity, a substance. And she said, I'm really good with going with the flow. And I'm like, that's good, because that's an aspect to talk about in a session.
Yes.
So I'm curious if people are out there that are listening. Are you a go with the flow person? Are you sometimes, not times, kind of going the flow? But yeah, how about you, AJ? Are you go with the flow person?
I would like to say I'm somewhere in the middle. It depends on the situation. When I have a realization that it's out of my control, I really easily can surrender to that. Most times I don't have a challenging time doing that, but I think that, you know, I'm also one of those people who like things a certain way and in a certain order. And if they don't go that way, I am challenged just a little bit. And only just a little bit, because it used to be a lot of it. It's something that I work on.
So you know how that when we get disrupted, and if you're on this path of spiritual discovery, and most people that listen to the show definitely are, one of the things that when something gets under your skin, that's a part of your work.
Yes. It's a nice reminder. Hello, you haven't looked at me today.
Tapping on your window.
Or this whole month.
So life has actually been, we've talked about how challenging, different aspects, but I think this week's just been nice. We've had, I felt a little bit more in my flow, and nothing like really shaking me up much, but I always look forward to Wednesdays where we get to listen to people, an expert on a subject, learn more things about it.
Yeah, today will be no exception. I'm excited for the guest tonight.
Yeah.
I know we're going to learn a lot.
Yeah. How's your week been?
So I've done a lot of resting this past week. Just really have been in tune with my body and what it needs, and honoring that instead of pushing myself to the point of exhaustion, which I do, and I actually enjoy, but it has repercussions. And so I've had lots of moments of just being. And I've also done a lot of new research. I'm studying all of the different beings in our universe, all the different galactic beings, and that has been fun. Actually, that's been really fun, and it's like a precursor to what's coming for me in my future. I'm really excited to dive in deeper into these different beings and different life forms and different planets and star systems and things like that. It's always been something I've been drawn to, and I've just never really known exactly why, but it's becoming more and more apparent that some of them are my people or beings or whatever they may be, and some of them are not. And it's just really neat to learn new things, right? Put seeds in your brain and watch it grow.
I'm going to have to just learn from you, because that is something I don't really know much about.
I know just what I what very little I know. There's so many shows and there's so many guests that we've had that have just added more fuel to the fire. It's just every time I hear something new or new to me, I'm like, ooh, that's intriguing and I want to know more. And, reading isn't like my strong suit. I don't enjoy reading like I used to with the cognitive struggles that I have. And so it really is a challenge for me, but I'm learning patience, having to read things on repeat. But most importantly, like just the information and just the resonance that's in my heart and my soul with a lot of this information. I'm just like, what took me so long to get here? It's like I'm starting to open the door back to home, and it's really cool. I'm really enjoying that. So it's filled my week with joy. It's good.
That investigator inside of you that loves to learn things.
I do love to learn things. The thing about me is like I'll learn a ton of something on one subject and get totally hyper fixated on it, and then go on to another thing, and then go on to another thing, and then come back to that thing, and then go on to another thing, and then possibly go back to that thing. I just, symptoms of ADHD, but not that I have a title or that I want one. I'm just saying that's just my personality. So people can probably relate to that who have similar, just like with all my hobbies, there's many, and I get hyper fixated on one and then I get bored and let's go to the next one, or I see a bird or whatever it is, but I'm just like, do. Same with learning, except for this just feels a little different. We'll see what happens.
I'm excited to hear about that and watch you grow.
Yeah, it's exciting. I really, really like that.
I have a hard time too if I'm reading books. I have a harder time reading books than if I listen to it. And even if I read a little bit as I'm listening, but I'm definitely more auditory. I can listen to lectures and then just get the information soaks in through listening. And especially if they're a really good speaker.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't like to listen to everyone, but I do have people I do like listening to.
Mm-hmm. Same. I agree. That's another thing. Like, we talked about routines last week and like the things that we like to do, how we start our day and what that looks like. I always like to give myself at least a half an hour of like meditation or study of some kind, read a book, meditate, yoga, do something that like fuels my mind and my body. And a lot of times I'll listen to like the teachings of different people like Ram Dass or, why did I just draw a blank on my favorite?
Alan Watts.
Or what was that? Yeah. And so I think that it's important, even if we're not like focusing in on like reading that book, but even just listening or have it going on in the background throughout our day, because, we're receiving the information constantly. Mm-hmm. And so just having that on repeat, no matter what that looks like, I think it's just really good for us. And, they talk about energy attracts energy, and the type of energy you are, like, what are you consuming? Who are the people you're hanging out with? What is the food that you're eating? Things like that. Helps you raise your vibration as well, or lower it, depends on what you're doing. And so, yeah.
You know how many
that good stuff.
Right. How many people have the habit of having the television? How often do you hear people just say, well, I have the TV going in the background for the noise? And I'm like, ugh, turn that off.
Yeah. There's several of my friends who are that way. And when they want me to come over, I'm like, can we turn the TV off? If I come over, can we turn the TV off? Like, yeah, no, it's not a thing. So Yeah. Build your big, beautiful brains, people.
It's true. I taught a class yesterday on intention. So the power of intention and really the essence of the concept that I wanted to get across in that class was that wherever your attention is focused, energy goes. And so if you, and we're habitual beings, so we have already lived our years of our lives backed by intention and backed by a routine and different belief structure. So all of that goes together of when you're wanting to attract or you have an intention to bring something different into your life, then a cleanup is required. So one of the aspects that I brought up in that class was if you have an intention, you need to clear out any belief structures or things that get in your way. So you have to raise your awareness, and you need and one of the aspects of being more mindful is to listen to the words that come out of your mouth just naturally. And that's a skill to learn to listen to you speak. Not everyone has cultivated the ability to have the listener listening while one is speaking. And so that's something I just want to bring up is as you're going through your processes, paying attention to the words that come out of your mouth and the quality and how it feels. And it isn't about just radically changing what you're saying either. It's just raising the awareness and acknowledging where you are, wherever you are in your life. And then putting the energy into the intention. So that means bringing the language that's around the intention and practicing that, even if it isn't in your regular practice now, because you need to build the muscles to be able to hold the frequency that you're headed to.
Good point. That brings me to this. There's a lot of world events going on, or even events in our country. And like, for instance, we have this is it a solar eclipse?
It is.
Coming on the 8th. There's a lot of beliefs going on about what's supposedly going to take place, right? And so there's this fear created. They're creating this fear around this day, like don't go outside, don't do this, don't do that. Same thing they do with all other kinds of big events, and nothing really seems to happen, but this is the one. And so there's like this extra energy going on. I don't know if you felt it, but like no one around me is talking about it, but I'm aware of it because of the things that I'm reading and seeing. And so, but I think overall, like the population is fearing whatever it may be, because it's coming from different belief systems, like religious or spiritual or scientific or even political. You've got the National Guard getting involved for some reason. Like there's all these things that are going to take place. And so you talk about what you're consuming while you're listening. For example, you're listening to this information, and everyone collectively, not everyone, but I'm generalizing, is having this collective fear, which is a very low vibrational emotion. And we've talked about this before many times. It's not like I'm saying anything you haven't heard. I'm just reminding you, like, as these things are taking place and happening, just to build on what you're saying, Natalie, is, be very aware of what you're consuming, what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and how only you have the power inside of yourself to change that, not anybody else. No. And so you can play into that fear or whatever else is going on collectively, or you can choose, the opposite spectrum of that and go into a higher vibrational state, like joy and, of course, love and authenticity and whatever that looks like for you, and not give that energy into the event that's taking place, because that will only build it and make it bigger. And also inside of you, which is the most important, right? We got to take care of the insides of us. So yeah, when you talked about that, that's what I thought about. I was like, oh, and right now you know, we can only what's this stuff? We can only create.
You demonstrate that self-awareness. You're like, oh, I'm hearing myself say, that's an interesting thing.
You know, side note, so funny. Warren, the owner of the station, way back in 2016, way back at the beginning, I should say, of Soul Wanderings in 2016, I'd be recording shows and Warren had to edit them. And I said, a lot. And he said, we got to really work on that. We should count how many there are. In fact, I bet we could do an entire show of all your or make a song out of all your I'm like, I've never done this before. What do you want from me? So I'm very aware when I'm saying, because he put that little seed inside of me, like watch your Just as a side note, that was kind of funny.
That's the part of what we also like about having it, not taking it too seriously.
No, absolutely not. That's the part of letting go, right? You really can't take yourself too seriously. None of this is really that serious anyway, if you're really looking at the big grand scheme of things.
Well, even if you look at the grand scheme of things and say, how many solar eclipses? Now, I had a good friend of mine that went to the solar eclipse where they had where it was a total eclipse in Idaho. And he talked about the traffic conditions and what it was really like actually driving there and being like in that place where it was the total, in that zone of absolute total eclipse. And he said it was hours and hours and hours because there were so many people that went. It was interesting to listen to how it does affect the local environment where people are driving there, but that there's these aspects about in the flow. So where I was going with that was our planet actually has survived untold solar eclipses because it's a natural phenomenon. And we are in a time where there's a lot of heightened sensitivity, which drives a lot of fear. And it's hard to know where and what to believe because there's programming everywhere. Everywhere there's programming. So
we're even programming you right now.
Right.
But with good vibes.
Everywhere, including us. That's where we want to take over the world. We want to raise your vibration. Raise it, raise it, raise it.
Definitely want to raise it. And we want you to join our army of raising the vibe.
That's right.
It's so good. So tonight's going to be fun because we're going to talk. Well, we're not going to talk. We have a really awesome guest who's going to talk, hopefully more than we will. You've heard from us. Let's hear from him. And we're going to do that right when we get back from this break. So stay close, everyone. We'll be right back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Soul Wanderings. I am AJ.
And I am Natalie.
And we are your hosts. Welcome to Wandering Wednesday. I love it.
It is
so good.
Yes.
All right. It looks like we have Bill coming in for a little advertisement. So let's bring on Bill real quick and then we'll carry on with our guest.
Yes, we have from Contact in the Desert, which provided us this promo. It expires March 31st, so it expires on Easter. It's a 10% discount. So I'm going to put that up on the screen if anybody's interested in attending. It is, you use the code Easter10. If you go to contactinthedesert.com, put in Easter10 and you'll get 10% off your passes.
Awesome.
I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Thank
and
you.
your lovely audience, and to both of you. And yes, you have a great guest. So I will say goodbye and have a great rest of your show.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
I love that. I love saving money. And I have always wanted to go to that gathering. It looks very interesting.
Wow.
I think those are my kind of people. When I went to the Ozark UFO conference a couple of times, I had the best time. So good. I just love being around people who want to know more and experience more. It's so beautiful. Talking about and learning about more, let's bring on our guest tonight is Dr. Fredrick Woodard. He's a clinical psychologist and certified hypnotherapist who conducts original research on the supernatural and paranormal, hypnosis, and psychotherapy. He has used his approach to developing enhanced awareness in his clinical practice with well-adjusted individuals seeking to explore and expand their human potential and achieve self-growth. Let's welcome to the show, Dr. Fredrick Woodard. Hi there.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're very excited to have you. Thank you for taking the time to spend the evening with us. We're really delighted to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So first of all, before we go on, I just want to make a public announcement. I misspelled your name in the advertisements, but we're going to get that corrected on the final publication. So if anyone is looking for more information about you, then they'll know that your name is spelled incorrectly. But moving on past that, you have a new book release coming out that we want to talk to you about.
It's come out already on Amazon.
Did it get released?
People have received it and told me they've gotten a copy already.
Oh, awesome. So it came out, wasn't it supposed to come out this week?
It was supposed to come out the 1st, but it came out early.
Yeah, so good. So good. I love that. I haven't gotten a copy yet, but I will because I love reading our book, all the books from our guests. It's one of our favorite things to do. We'll talk about your book called Developing Your Supernatural Awareness. But let's learn about you first. That's the joy of Soul Wanderings, is we get to know you on a personal level. So why don't you give us a little introduction of you?
Me? Well, let me see. I started off wanting to understand the supernatural, and as a result, it led me to hypnosis and psychology. I thought that a psychologist would be a person that could really gain research abilities to delve into these areas. So I went and got my master's. I have 3 masters and a PhD.
Oh my goodness. That's a lot of education.
And I got them all the real way, like going to class and sitting there and being in the real world, not online or anything. It was all in person.
All hands on.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that makes a difference?
Well, it helped me in a way because I used the humanistic and phenomenological research that I learned interviewing processes, which taught me how to not make any judgments and not say anything that kind of sways a person, but to say things very simply, like you said, can you say more about that? And things like that. And I learned to set aside my judgments, and that was powerful. When I was just starting college, I remember getting a flyer from a local clinic or something that was UFOs and all this stuff. And I looked at it and I said, my God, these people are crazy. But then I learned to open up myself because people shared things with me, and the things they shared were hard to dispute. And it was really interesting. I remember one time a guy told me, and this was when I was a psychologist, but he told me a story about how he was sitting there with his father, who was passed out and talking to his sister who had died. And then he woke up and he looked at him and he said, I was talking to your sister and she said she had 2 kids. The 2 kids called me grandpa. And then the brother-in-law was sitting there and he broke down into tears. And he said, we had 2 miscarriages. We never told anybody.
Oh.
So little things like that, things like I remember once going into a store and thinking about my uncle who died in the war and thinking, well, maybe he's not really there all the time. Maybe he's not even there, and then I got I bought a soda and in my change, I got a World War II nickel, which was very rare, incredibly rare. You could go to the bank and order all kinds of nickels and never find one. And so I said to myself, maybe I need to not judge. Maybe I need to just wait and see.
Yeah. It's a lot different when you have your own personal experiences that you just can't deny. It's one thing for someone to share their experience and you're like, whoa, wait, hold on. But when you have them yourself, it's a different perception.
Right. And I think in my book, I call that subjective truth or subjective something, but I think it's subjective truth because that mattered to me, but it wouldn't matter to anyone else. Nobody would care whether I got a World War II nickel in my hand or not. Nobody would even, it wouldn't matter to them, unless they were
really
family.
Cool, though.
Right. And in my book, I have an experience that I had at the Concord State Library, which when I was doing genealogy, and I was trying to connect my grandfather, who was a great grandfather, who was a Revolutionary War captain and in the militia, and his father, who lived in Pittsford, Vermont. And I couldn't connect them. And there was these 3 old men sitting in the corner talking, and you couldn't make out what they were saying. They were mumbling. And suddenly one of the guy's voices in my head said, check the land deeds, and then went back to mumbling in his mind. And it was in my head. It wasn't like, so I went to the Mormon church in Nashua and ordered the land deeds, and a land deed came. And one of the things that was incredible was the land deed actually had written the relationship between my grandmother that died, her husband, Joshua, he died. He was murdered when he went up to Shelburne to get wheat. And her and her son, it said either Mother Mary, Widow Mary, mother of, or son, Captain Amos Woodard. And I proved that they were his parents. And that was rare to even have a document that had a relationship on it.
Were you going to say something, Natalie?
Well, I was just going to say that it's really wonderful how the synchronicities or those things will come up when you're open to it. So do you feel like you were always somewhat open to it, even though you felt like maybe you were blocked and you needed some further education?
Well, yes, because earlier on in my life, when I was a young kid, I saw an image of a guy and in my mind, and when I was dreaming or sleeping, and then I woke up and I remembered the image of him. And years later, I was managing a group home and never told anybody this story at all. And a schizophrenic guy walked up to me and said, a man sitting in your chair wearing a hood, a man sitting in your chair wearing a hood. And that's exactly who it was. It was that same being.
These stories are the coolest.
But
no, really, I love hearing stuff like this.
I think they're little compared to the stories I have in my book on other people's experiences.
Mm-hmm. But they're yours. And
yes.
That's what's neat about it is that you have...
No, I appreciate that, what you said. Yeah. It's just, I think that there's bigger stories. And, for example, I had in one of the chapters, I had a woman that her and her sister kept trying to find their father's insurance document because he had died. and they needed it for the house and everything to settle the will, and they couldn't find it. And so she had given up, and she was home, and she laid down to go to sleep, and she smelled her father's cigar smoke and looked up, and there he was in her room. And he said, check the coin savers, the insurance documents in the coin savers. And 2 days later, they went over to the coin savers, and sure enough, there was the insurance document.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So exactly how is that different than sitting in a library, doing all the research and being told to check the land deeds? Isn't that a similar sort of experience?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is because I did it, and it proved to be true. It proved to be a real event. And one of the things that I came to realize was the stories in my book, there's two things about them. Either a person had an inner experience, which you guys were talking about earlier, an inner experience that then is later in the real world, in the external world, or they have an experience that's so transforming that it transforms who they are. They become changed. You can visually, clearly see they've changed because of this experience.
So along those lines, touch a little bit more into that dynamic that you bring up in the book. That's what you've discovered about the supernatural or the way this world works. Can you lean into that one a little bit?
Well, I can give you an example. A woman that is in my book, she wanted to go to the laundromat, and she wanted her husband to go with her, but he wouldn't. And she had 2 children at the time. And so she went to the laundromat by herself, and then she saw a guy in there, and she said, "Oh, good, there's somebody in there, and I'll be safe." Well, she walked into the laundromat, and she was assaulted by this guy. He knocked her out cold, and then he raped her. And when she was knocked out, she went to the light. And at the light, she met somebody that she knew, but she doesn't remember later, and said, "They told me I could come, but I would have to relive my life again, and I couldn't take my children." And so as a result of all that, she had no desire to die. She wanted to live her life out, complete it, and live through it. And so she did. And that's like a transformative, that proves that the experience. And when I interviewed her, she was old. She was in her late 70s. And she had lived her whole life with no examples of that, wanting to die or anything.
I really like these stories, and I want to continue talking about them, but I'm curious if we can step back just a little bit and how your supernatural and paranormal interests led you to psychology and hypnotherapy and things like that. They just seem so far apart from each other.
Well, hypnosis, when it's done correctly, like there's a book by Richard Bach, Illusions of Reluctant Messiah. And that book talks about how it's really about the person. Jesus wanted to wake everybody up. He didn't want people to follow him. He wanted to wake people up. And throughout the book, there's that kind of, and there's a scene in it where he says, "Better hypnotist than Messiah."
I do not remember that part of that book, but that is one of my favorite books.
Yes, and he so the idea is that we want to achieve things, but a good hypnotist, a good psychologist leads a person to their own path, their own way, helps them find what they need, not tells them what they need. Unless, of course, there's safety issues and all that, that's different. But when there's not those things involved, you just help people do the things they need to do so they can find their truth. They can find their growth. They can find their way.
That seems similar to what you do, Natalie.
that is actually really a lot. What I do in my work is to I see people as generally functional. I mean, I'm not a clinical psychologist, but when I'm working with people, I see them as generally functional and then needing to be tuned and everything is inside a person anyway. And they're the ones that have to live it out. They have to live in that body and live with that mind and live with their emotional nature. So having them discover what they can do inside of themselves and facilitating that, I'm sure that's been quite a benefit for you to find some success in the various techniques that you worked with.
Yes, and it's all about empowering people. It's always about empowering them, helping them come to their own realizations.
So would you say that you're really pretty good at reading people? What was your talent that you really brought to the work?
I think it was the non-judgment and the listening and allowing people to open up and share what they really want to share.
Go ahead, Natalie.
How did you, so you touched a little bit on learning non-judgment through the phenomenology, but I don't know that everybody is really familiar.
I think I had that already.
Concept. Oh, you did have that already? Before that,
Yes.
It was just tuned with the schooling that you had?
Well, some of it was schooling, but some of it, that was to help me do the interviewing. But the actual feelings I had all along, I think I was always non-judgmental. I tried not to make judgments, and I tried to listen to people and help them, no matter who they were.
Oh, I was on mute. I think we all need somebody who is there to do that for us, because we just want to be validated or heard and not misunderstood or guided.
And when you do that, you can make connections too. It's like making connections, It's like, I remember I had a guy one time that he told me a story about how his father used to criticize him when he was a kid, and that's why he was very sensitive to that. And then later in the conversation, he was talking about his boss who was criticizing him all the time. And so I said to him, that sounds like your father. Is that? Oh my God, I never thought of that. So putting connections together, putting the connections together that help people come to realize things they need to know.
And so after your education and working with all of these clients and having these experiences with them, at what point did you have enough people share with you? Because you share a lot of stories in your book, right?
50-something, yes.
Yeah. At what point did you say, I need to write a book about this and share these experiences with everyone?
Well, the whole thing was, the whole reason for the research was to share it in book and journal form. And I first wrote a journal article that was quite a few pages, 70-something pages maybe. And it was many examples. And I got an award for that from CC Productions up here in New Hampshire, who gave me a Paranormal Researcher of the Year, 2012, for that. And then the next step was the book, was to write the book, and which I've just finished. It's just been published.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So you talk about being the #1 paranormal investigator. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Researcher of the year. So it wasn't like all the time. It wasn't everyone all the time. It was just for the year for those people. And it was based on my journal article that was given to her. And the people that made the judgments were out of New York, and they agreed that I had a significant contribution. And it's all I did is present the material. The people that shared it were the real contributors, the real stars.
I love that you interviewed so many people who have just a vast variety of different stories and experiences that they shared with you. We like hearing about those kinds of things. How did you find the people that were giving you these experiences that they shared?
Well, at first I had a bunch of people just share those experiences with me. And then what I did is I started to put an ad out for research participants. And I put the ad out and got people from that. And then by word of mouth after that, people knew that I was into that stuff, and I was open to those experiences.
So you weren't the typical doctor. You really wanted to hear their authentic truth and experiences, and not try to.
Well, I kind of see it as a pioneer area. I kind of see it as a pioneer area. It's an area that isn't fully understood, and that's why I call it supernatural. It's the idea that it goes beyond science as we know it. And it doesn't mean that someday we won't understand. It's just right now we don't completely understand why and how all these experiences take place. Even I didn't understand why I heard the guy's voice in my head tell me to check the land deeds. And then when I did, to get the piece of paper that proved it, it's just, how do those things happen?
So what did you discover along the way when you asked the question why? This is just a generalization. Was like, we take the why and say, why do these phenomenons actually happen? That's one question that I have for you. And then another one would be, did you find that people had to be open or somewhat awakened or cracked open to be able to experience them, like an open mind versus a closed mind?
Yes, people have to have an open mind. I mean, some of the themes were out of the blue, the first thought that comes to your mind, altering time and space, perceiving through thought, feelings and thoughts, interaction with external influences, creatures, perceiving unexpected beings and objects, communicating after death, and ethical supernatural awareness, using your gifts responsibly. Because that's another thing that I ended that with that. That was one of the last chapters, one of the last few chapters. And it was talking about how people need to be responsible in how they use their gifts.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree with that more.
Because not everybody is.
No, that's tends to be you. Not only do you battle you've got the supernatural, but then you have the human nature where people will take these, so-called power. So through your research, did you determine it's just a natural aspect of us as human beings? To have
I think it's natural, but it's supernatural because we don't understand it. We can't really explain it, and when we do, it's just some logical version of something that's not necessarily so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to understand it?
Well, it would help if we could understand it. It would help, but I don't think that we're going to in this life.
I've had this analogy that I brought up sometimes about, and I've used this to describe how humans would need to, how we could understand God or the bigger thing. And it also would be applicable to supernatural. So I say the koi are in a pond, and it's difficult for the koi in the pond to describe the sidewalks next to the pond because it's something beyond their visual, beyond they can see. And that's the one thing I see with humans, where we can describe our experiences and interactions from our frame of reference, but it's really difficult to describe the other side. We get a glimpse into that through descriptions of near-death experience and things like that. So what bubbled up in all your research that are along those lines about how do people describe the supernatural? Is it something that they saw in their mind, or is it all of these things?
Well, it's many different things. So it could be that they saw it in their mind and then it really happened, and And it was like my event at the library. It's like I heard something, I followed through and carried through with it. And the result was it was true.
So really
there was a
checking
land
in.
deed. And so it's like, but I think people do that. There was a guy that told me a story, and he was uneducated, like he graduated high school, and that was it. But he witnessed seeing a neighbor die, have a heart attack outside with it walking his dog. And then he got upset about it when he woke up, and he told his parents, and they didn't believe him. But a week later or so, his neighbor did go for a walk with his dog and came home and died of a heart attack.
Prevention or pre-knowing does not mean prevention. It
doesn't always. You're right.
No.
And so it's very powerful to the person that experienced it, though. They have a hard time letting go of it, and they really like this happened inside of me, and then it really happened in the real world. Mm-hmm. But those are different experiences than fears and fantasies and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is learning to trust your intuition and really lean into it, because it's not something that is conditioned in us as we grow up. We're actually conditioned out of it. And so just even having a remembering of who we are and how powerful our intuition is, and really leaning into that is going to assist us greatly in hearing those inner promptings or getting those premonitions or whatever ability it is that we have.
Right. I remember when I was working on my PhD, I went out New Year's Eve with a couple of friends, and then I came home, and I had to drive 20 miles to get outside of Fresno, where I got my PhD, and to get home. And so when I was home, I went to bed, and I guess I didn't lock the front door to my place, which was an apartment attached to a house. And so I woke up about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and said, "There's somebody in here." And I listened, and I couldn't hear anything. And then it said it again to me, "There's somebody in here." And I stood up, and I went to get my bat just to protect myself. And sure enough, there was a drunk Mexican sleeping on the floor, and I made him leave. I made him get up and leave and go home. But I never forgot the fact that it was not even a question. It was a fact. And I had no conscious way of knowing that had happened.
Yeah, that's just awesome. So many things like that happen to all of us, and we disregard them or call them a coincidence or whatever it may be. But
I also
it really
learned
is
that
powerful.
when I was training in psychology, there was many cases of women that told me, "Well, I went to that party and I know I shouldn't have gone, and then I got hurt when I was there, or raped or whatever." And they tell me that they had something telling them not to go, but they didn't listen to themselves.
I think that's more common than us listening to ourselves, unfortunately. And hopefully we can get to a vibrational state where it's just second nature. It's just something we all do.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
True.
These stories are really interesting and definitely worth listening to. We look forward to hearing more in the second hour. Let's have everyone stand up, stretch, get your wiggles out, and then get comfy with us for the next hour. We'll be right back. Hello, Wanderers. Welcome back to Soul Wanderings, heard here on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. You can follow us on kgradb.com. If you head onto the shows and hosts button, then over to Wednesday night, scroll down to Soul Wanderings. There are options for you to become a member and also save some money. You can sign up for a free trial. You can sign up for a week or a month. You choose. But when you do, You support the station and you support our show, and we're very grateful for all of it. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We are hanging out with a new guest, Dr. Fredrick Woodard, and he is the author of Developing Your Supernatural Awareness, Connecting with an Interactive Universe. And lots of questions still. Are you ready? Thank you for coming back, Dr. Fredrick.
You're welcome.
Natalie has a whole lineup for you. I'm going to let her take over now.
I do. So I am curious about you talk about these invisible beings that are in the universe. And so you want to talk a little bit about that. Who or what are all these invisible beings that are alive in the universe?
Well, sometimes you can see them and sometimes you can't. Sometimes they're former human beings. Sometimes they're creatures. And it's hard to just pick one to describe. I remember a woman telling me a story of how she was cleaning and she saw this black blob kind of creature moving around while she was cleaning in a healthcare facility.
Right. So you find through the research, there's just so many representations of the beings so in your research and discovery of the beings, this is a statement that says there's all these invisible
Well, there's
beings.
a lot of them are former people.
Okay.
A lot of them are former people. Like one woman had told me a story about how her great aunt and uncle, and she kind of described it really well in my book. And for example, she said that when she met them in real life, she'd feel them. And when they died and then she sensed them, she felt the same feeling.
Mm. So she felt the connection, the physical connection and the spiritual connection essentially was no different.
Right.
And that's what helped her recognize them.
Yep. So there was you're putting words on it. I leave it just the way they said it to a degree and try not to put too many words on it and label it, because then I'm adding my stuff. And if I add something, I would try to make sure it's really consistent with what they're saying.
Well, since we're talking about a book that you wrote, and so this is part of like the show development that says, well, we want you to talk to us about these.
Right. I understand. But what I'm trying to say is it's hard because you have to be very careful with what words you use in describing an experience, because otherwise you're jumping to something, a label, some structure that's not necessarily a good thing because it's coming from you, not from them.
So that sounds like that's quite a concept that isn't necessarily about the supernatural, but that little comment that you made just then, which I agree with you, words are quite powerful and can put an essence on that. So is that concept mostly what you've learned in having to do this particular kind of research, or is it also encompasses the hypnosis experiences that you've been through?
Well, one of the hypnosis experiences I had way back in time was my original training was a lay hypnotist who taught me, and he had us do the hand clasps exercise where you can't open your hands. And when he was done, I opened my hands, went like this, and he looked at me and he shook his head and he said, I have 30 witnesses. If you close your eyes, listen to what I say, and you can open your hands, I'll give you $1 million. And so I closed my eyes, I listened to what he said, and I realized I couldn't open my hands. And then I opened my eyes, and my hands were still closed. And he said, now you're in control. The whole issue you guys were talking about earlier about being in control, you have to really be aware of what's going on to be have any control over even yourself. You have to respond to what's being given to you. If you don't, you're acting independent of what's going on around you.
I like that description. That really hits with me. How control is not what we think it is.
Right, and it's true. It's very powerful and empowering to people when you give them what they need, and that's that whole thing I talk about in different ways. It's always about that and empowering. Even intuition is listening. It's being aware of what's going on around you, not just, I had a simple everyday experience. I was walking with a professor friend of mine and two of my German shepherds, and ahead of me, about 100 yards or so, two bobcats crossed the path and went up into the woods. And I noticed it, but no one else did. The dogs didn't, and he didn't. And I didn't say anything. I just noticed, well, at least I saw that.
Not without a question, not trying to question whether or not it was an actual true experience for you. If nobody else noticed it, you just noticed it. You paid.
Well, they were real. They were real. They weren't like make believe. They were real animals. I saw them go up and saw the branches move and everything, but they were, but they weren't paying attention to their environment. The dogs were sniffing right in front of them, and he was trying to talk to me about stuff that was important to him.
Yeah, it's definitely good to be aware of your surroundings. That could be a scary interaction.
Well, I don't think that the bobcats, the two of them, they wouldn't wanted to take on two dogs and two human beings at the same time.
Absolutely not.
Unless they were rabid, and then that would be a different story.
It's always a different story if it was going to be those things. So how would you, do you have some advice for people that so there was two different thoughts. So we'll go with this one and then I'll ask you the next one after. So do you have some advice for people on how really to develop their intuition?
Their supernatural awareness, to develop it. At the end of each chapter, I have collected ideas from that chapter, experiences that people talked about, and then I pull it in at the end of the chapter in each chapter, so people can try to use those exercises to develop, either to enhance more relationships or more experiences, or to have their first one if they haven't had one. Because there's people that have never had an experience and they want one, and there's people that have had many and they want to know that other people have had them. So the examples are one wonderful way to do that. And the examples I have in the book. And then the other is the exercises.
That sounds really wonderful. I do a lot of work with grief. And so within my grief groups, that people will talk about these types of experiences that they've had with their loved ones passing. I remember one woman, it wasn't very long after her husband had passed, that just a few months since he had died, that her toilet flushed in her basement and nobody else was there. She was in the house alone. To have these types of experiences. See, life is just happening.
Life is happening.
Yes. And so I often have people that are looking to have some dreams or have some connections, and they'll ask, why haven't my loved one reached out to me? Why I haven't had a dream about them? Why am I not feeling my loved one? Is that something that you encountered?
I've encountered that with some people in therapy. who have had deaths in their families and haven't connected with anyone. But I'm as far as the supernatural part, the people that share their stories, they have connected with them in their minds. They have connected with those people that matter to them. And it really comes down to maybe the person isn't ready. Maybe the person that passed can't reach out. There's all those kind of things you don't know about. The father of the insurance document woman who found the insurance document, he said he didn't know how things worked completely. He was allowed to do what he did, but he wasn't sure about everything else.
I had really considered the fact that the spirit side might not be able to connect, that it may be something on that side.
Well, it could be this side or it could be that side. It could,
Sure.
Those are both possibilities. The person on this side might not be able to see those things or hear those things or experience those things.
It's so true.
Have you had clients that have shared with you about having a near-death experience, or do you have any experience with that? And do you believe it's paranormal or supernatural? Like, where does that fall in your category?
I think it's supernatural because we don't understand it completely. And I had an experience that I put in the book of a near-death experience where the woman had some unusual aspects to it, and so she was I can't remember all the details, but it's in the book. But she had an experience, and she was sure that it was real, and she remembered looking down and seeing the light beyond her, but couldn't see the light that was like coming down. And so there was some interesting aspects to her particular experience that were unique to her, or in my being able to interview her, unique. Mm-hmm. But I didn't do just a chapter on near-death experience. I just had one or two experiences of that. My book is based on the developing your supernatural awareness. It's based on the research that the people presented to me. So I can't go and make stuff up. So I just did what I could with the stuff that I had. So I didn't have a whole chapter of near-death experiences, but I had one experience.
I was just curious because so many people learn their gifts and their abilities through experiences like NDEs or SDEs, or interaction with other beings. And so,
right, the woman in the laundromat that went to the light and then came back. She was a good example of that too, reaching that point where she met somebody and they talked to her and then she came back.
Go ahead, Natalie. I realized I interrupted you. I apologize.
Oh, no worries at all. So there, in the book, you talk about key findings and that there's common threads. Do you want to talk a little bit about these 12 key findings that you have?
Well, I don't have them all memorized in my mind, but some of them are simply the fact that a person can have an experience anywhere. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a particular place. Mm-hmm. And they can be of any age, any background, any religion, any of those. Those are a couple of them. People fear that they're going to be looked at as crazy or labeled that way, like someone's going to, or they can't, or they want to find experiences that other people share with them so that they have someone else that shared that experience. That's important to them too.
That makes sense. So so this may not be along those same lines with the key findings, but how would someone handle the fear that just comes up when you encounter something that's supernatural?
Well, that would all depend on the person. It's a very unique experience. It's not a generalized thing that you can say everybody experienced. Some people experience more fear. Some people experience less fear. So it's a very individual thing. And what kind of fear? I think fear that they're going crazy is more about other people labeling them.
Mm-hmm. I often find that is a common thread that I hear in the work that I do, that people will this phrase, people will think I'm crazy, or you may think I'm crazy, or this might sound crazy. These are so common phrases that people say. It's like a social norm or a social belief that just in the social dynamic, but doesn't necessarily hold truth. Because I don't find, well, maybe that's because of the work that I do and the nature of my conversations always have some openness, are definitely open to the supernatural sense. That's some of my work. But to me, it's like that doesn't make any sense because this happens so often. Did you find that? This happens very often.
Yes, it happens a lot more often than people realize. It's very frequent and it's very common. But there are some people that can't experience these things. And those are the cynics and the people that I remember my old office. I had a big lobby, and then I had a computer room, and then I had a playroom, and then I had a therapy room, and then I had a family room. And I remember being in my computer room all by myself in the office, and some guy came by and opened up the door and screamed, "Can you read minds too?"
Who was this guy?
I have no idea. And just thought, well, it was bothering him or something.
What did you do with that experience?
Nothing. I just looked at it like a person that's negative, a negative person, a negative experience toward certain experiences.
Oh, that makes sense. So tell me a little bit more about your own personal experiences that you've had with the supernatural and your own. So since it's individual, talk a little bit more about your own personal experiences of supernatural and your own impressions of the supernatural.
Well, those have been pretty much the big ones. Other ones are just little synchronicities. As a matter of fact, Carl Jung talks about a story in one of his books that is incredible. And he had a picture of a friend, and the picture fell down off the bookcase and cracked. And he wrote down the exact time. That was the time that person died.
That's incredible.
He was a very gifted psychologist, and he was very much into the spiritual. And I think those kind of things don't get enough credit, and they happen a lot more frequently than we realize.
Carl, you definitely did a lot of research, and I've listened to a few different lectures by him, and it's really interesting to know that his research, he did research similar to what you did into people's actual experiencing and just documenting and cataloging their personal experiences.
Well, he also wrote a book on symbols, and I forget the title of it. And anyway, in the book, he's talking about how he went down to the lake. He walked from his office to the lake, and he went by this stump. And what he was studying at the time was fish symbols. So he went by this stump. There was nothing on it, and he came back, and there was a big fish on it.
Unexplainable, huh?
And then all of his clients also started talking about fish stories at the same time.
Just a way that the intention just spread through, or his request to the
And
universe.
I can understand that stuff, because I remember once I was seeing a mother and her daughter who was about 8, and they came into my office and I started talking about tigers, and they smiled to each other and looked at each other. And I said, what are you talking? What's going on? We were just talking about tigers for the last half an hour as we drove here. And I had no idea about that. I consciously didn't understand that. I just know I connected to them that way.
It definitely happens. There's this interconnection between humans that is definitely hard to explain, isn't it? How did you actually find how to? Well, you in your book, it's very research based. That's what I'm gathering, is that it's research.
It's made for the public. It's a book written for the public. It's not written for therapists and stuff. It's written more for clients, because the stories are put into simple words, simplified into the best, simplest language I can use to say what needs to be said. My first book was more like that, where I did both. My perceptual hypnosis book was written for the clinician and for the client, but that didn't work very well. I think it's better to write for one group.
Oh, so that book didn't, you found that book didn't work very well?
Well, I did. It sold a couple thousand copies, but it's so far, but it wasn't written for one group of people. It was kind of written for both. And I think that's kind of hard to do.
Makes sense.
This new book, Developing Your Supernatural Awareness, this is written for the public. I put it in simple language, and I wrote it in the simplest, easiest, best way I could.
It's a book for everyone. I appreciate that, by the way. There are people who
not auditory. You can either get a digital version and see it on a Kindle, or you can do get the book itself, but it's not a book that's auditory.
Yeah, so I think that it's important for just the average person, right, to have access to information like this, because if they're having their own experiences, they may not know who to talk to or who can relate to them. So knowing that other people are coming forth and share their experience, I'm sure is very comforting for them, but also gives them permission to use their own voice and share their own experiences.
Yes, and that's very powerful. I have a senior woman that had a lot of traumas, and she says that all the time to me. You helped me be able to express myself, to speak my mind, to be able to say what I needed to say. That's so powerful.
How does that make you feel?
That made me feel good.
Yeah, I could see
that I had helped that person.
Mm-hmm. Well, and ultimately, isn't that your goal? Like when you share these people's experiences, you're wanting to help them. You want them to feel good.
Yes.
So you're doing that.
Yep.
And I'm slowly disappearing. See how magical I am?
It is so magical.
I don't know how, but I am.
It's supernatural.
Oh, he's got phones going on all over the place.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Natalie, did you have any more questions before I shift gears?
Well, one thing that just kind of bubbled up, and this isn't necessarily from the book that you wrote, but part of Soul Wanderings is we like to learn a little bit more about you. We really want to hear about you, and the book is an aspect of this conversation. But I would like to know, through all your years of experiences and all of your studies, what are some things that you learned that were maybe more in the psychological arena that you can share it through your experience as a psychologist, and just some insights that you've discovered along your way that you can share with the audience?
I think the most important thing is to empower people and to help them understand things better so that they can utilize whatever it is you're trying to help them with. I do psychotherapy with spiritual stuff like Jung and those things. I do psychotherapy that's more Freudian and like your past, how it affects your present. And I do cognitive behavioral, which is your current times. And so those things, I had a professor, and it's in my book. It's actually in the beginning of my book, I think, in this book, the Developing Your Supernatural Awareness, where I had a professor who actually said that all three of those things, when they're in connection, when they're in harmony, you have truth. When they're in disharmony, something's not true, because they shouldn't be in conflict. They should all be working together. And I totally agree with that. I think all three aspects are important. And so the techniques of cognitive behavioral, just doing things and just being present, is so important. Those are important things that people need to know and do. And then the past affects the present. And if people don't understand it, they can't grow beyond it. Some people can't understand it, and you couldn't even tell them that something from the past is affecting their present. You couldn't even do that because they won't listen. They don't have any awareness of that. But there are some people that do. And then, of course, there's the whole spiritual side of things when it's genuine, because there's also the false stuff, that goes on too. I mean, you hear the good and the bad in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I keep going to talk, but are you going to talk? Who's next?
Hey, Jaster.
Just building on what Natalie asked you, like, share us a little bit about you. I noticed that you have a big emphasis in your bio that I received, and also on your website, of your family past and present.
Well, I am the descendant of Chief Madockawando, who was a chief in Maine, and his father adopted him because his blood was higher. But they don't go into that. He was a brilliant man because when he died, one of my cousins, my Native American cousins, told me that she thought that he might have been murdered, but he wasn't going to let anyone know. And the power of that is incredible. If you think about taking away the power from the enemy. So they just announced he died, period.
Oh. So you're talking like, instead of saying that he was murdered and giving that power over to the person that murdered him, they just said he died.
Yeah, and that was like 1690s when that happened. It was one of my great 9 grandfathers.
Yeah, you have quite a family history noted on your website.
Yeah, and so he married, his daughter married my French baron grandfather, who was Vincent de St. Cassin. And Vincent de St. Cassin came from the line of Judah. So they were both very spiritual families, because Chief Madockawando was a shaman.
Wow. There's a lot of history here. I'm getting lost in it. I saw that you're also a descendant of Charlemagne.
Yep. And Charlemagne went and tried to make peace with the people at the time that were their enemies, and he agreed to go with one and fight against another enemy. And so he went to do that, and they were being ambushed all along the way. And then they got to the place where they were supposed to fight, and only the enemy was there.
Mm-hmm.
And then they fought, and somehow Charlemagne made it all the way home, safe and sound. He got home. Mm-hmm. And it's a miracle. That was a miracle story. Charlemagne's grandfather had violated the rules, because he was not a king. He was like a consultant to the kings, and he tried to become king when one of the kings was left his position, and they wouldn't acknowledge him. The people wouldn't acknowledge him, so he married Charlemagne's grandmother, who was royalty. She was a princess, and then through that, it was okay. But they violated the Pope's agreements. That the Pope agreed that forever they would allow the kings to rule, the Frank kings to be in charge, and they when they did that, they violated it.
Wow. I actually had the opportunity to go to the Aiken Cathedral just a few months ago, where Charlemagne's final resting place is.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Have you been?
No.
Incredible. Yeah, it was quite an experience.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You have a plethora of a lineage of people in your family. What is the purpose that you share it, and what's the importance of it to you?
I just did it, and I think it'll have more importance for other family members than for me. Mm-hmm. But I just did it because it was something I wanted to do. When I was in graduate school, they had us do our 3 or 4 generations, and I found that I started to go back a little bit, and it didn't make any sense. There was a Joshua Woodard that died at 28 on Boston in the Boston Commons or something, and he was supposed to be the father of Amos, and it was impossible. He would have been 12 years old when he had Amos. So I started looking into all that, and it took a long time. And I finally got some connections, and then I was really good at it. So I just kept doing it.
I can tell you have a large family history going on here on your website. And for those of you who were curious, I did post his website on all of the platforms that we're hanging out on. You can go ahead and click there to take a look for yourself. So many cool things. Go ahead, Natalie.
So in family lineage, did you I've just gone through this last several months in my own understanding. I have not researched all my genealogy. I've come from a Mormon background, so that's definitely part of the LDS religion. And so I have several families that do, and we do have a lot of our family history documented. But I had some ancestors that my sister had a connection to an ancestral story. And because we actually do come from the Mormon pioneers, I found that information for me was insightful to some of the family dynamics. So some of our families in my experience have personalities, and there's this personality that goes through different family, through families. And so one of our personalities that I think ties back to our pioneer heritage is the holding on to things. Like, these are perfectly good boards, they can be used. And so our family lineage is literally the pioneers that came here to the valley and had to start from scratch. They left wherever they were leaving, and they ended up with rags and tags in here. So that was insightful.
One of the things I really respected about the Mormons was they went out and they created this new settlement, and then they defended it, and they defended it well.
Yes, it's definitely that lineage. There's this intelligence, there's this ruggedness, there's this determination. But it also left a lot of the frills off. So that was really insightful to me to have access to that information. And I'm sure that's been somewhat beneficial for you, learning different characteristics of your ancestors.
Yes, it was. And there's many different stories. Like, I had one French grandfather that his son was a French naval officer, and he was up in Canada, the grandfather, and the son was like out on a ship or something, and the British caught him, and they brought him into Boston, and they were going to hang him as a pirate. And his father went down to Deerfield, Mass, collected himself some people, went back up to Canada, and sent a message: "You kill my son, I kill these people. You release my son, I release these people." And they released his son.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that was
way
powerful.
to do it.
That was powerful. And it was positive, because they had taken his son and misdirected what he was.
There's so many stories. That's one of the things that we love about Soul Wanderings, is like hearing all of the stories. It's like story time. So
Right.
Do you have any stories that always are your go-to because they just stand out in experiences for you? Like,
No, because I just try to live each day. I try to go with each day. And at the moment, I spend a lot of time with my 2 German shepherds. So I enjoy their company and take them for walks and stuff when I can.
dogs are the best as companions.
Right.
They are a lot of work, but they are so wonderful. I agree.
Yeah.
Do you want to share with us a little bit about the stories of the afterlife? Do you have any stories like that in your book?
Well, I have a few. I can't think of them right off the top of my head, though. I haven't read my book in a while.
I think you're right, because you can't remember a lot of the things.
Well, I have people tell me stories every day.
Yeah, that's a lot to remember. Absolutely.
And I told you the one where the woman was raped and went to the light and met somebody that she knew, and they told her that she could come, but she would have to live her whole life over again.
Yeah. And leave her kids. Yeah.
And she didn't want to do that. She couldn't bring her kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's stories like that. There's a lot of the stories that involve spirits or ghosts are just fleeting moments with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the story of the woman with her great aunt and great uncle. She saw them, she interacted with them, and then that was that. It didn't constantly happen nonstop. It was just a couple of experiences, and that was it.
Yeah.
What have you found that that people express the benefit of connection with the supernatural. What is the benefit of connection with the supernatural?
Realizing there's more than we understand is probably the greatest aspect of it, that it's beyond our understanding, and that we grow from being more aware. Becoming more aware is the process. Being able to see something, like I saw the two bobcats cross the path, being able to see something in the spiritual world or see something in the supernatural world that's real.
Yeah. Together. Do you have some regular daily practices that help you maintain your connection with the present moment?
Yes, I try to stay present with whatever I'm doing, and I do that as often as I can. I sometimes get caught up in, like when I'm working, I'm doing several things, but a lot of the times when I'm in just living my life, I'm trying to just live in the moment.
But what are some ways that you've learned how to do that? People in general are challenged every day of being in the present moment. How did you train yourself to do that?
I just began to realize, I guess, one of the stories that I heard was it started in Asia, and it was not as sophisticated as we turned it into. It was a person washing a dish. They'd smell the soap, they'd hear the water, they'd feel the water, they'd feel the sponge, they'd feel the dish, and they just do that. They just do the experience and just have the experience. And I've tried to do that when I walk my dogs. I try to just be present, be where I am, be where I'm supposed to be, and not be anywhere else in my mind.
What have you felt that the benefits to being present are for you?
It takes the stress away from worrying about the future or thinking about the past that you can't change. And staying present, you're more alive. You're more where you really are.
That is the practice. When did you start practicing these things?
It's been a while, maybe 10 years more. I've been doing that. I also did things like these are other things that kind of help too, but like turning negatives into positives. Well, I remember when I first did that, I was an undergrad in college, and I said, "Oh, 2 positive thoughts, 500 negative thoughts. This is going to work." And then I remember a couple of years later, I had a day where I went, "Wow, I didn't have 1 negative thought today."
You must have been stayed at it.
For someone not to have 1 negative thought, that is some definite practice.
But it's not all the time. It's not constant, because you get triggered by things in your world. But it's the idea of just being present. And that particular day, I didn't have any of those kind of things happening. Nothing was bringing me into a negative. Like, we can get sad because you see the news, or you see something that's like triggers that, or reminds you of something that you went through.
It's definitely true. Are you finding that, so this is in your current practice, are you finding that people are experiencing an increase in anxiety? And is that, what do you advise that's a helpful technique to deal with anxiety?
Well, anxiety-based stuff that helps people relax or not be negative is the most powerful stuff. Like relaxing breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, limit worrying, turn negatives into positives. Those things have multiple effects because what they do is they help people not have the hormones that are crushing through their body, like cortisol and adrenaline comes from negative experiences. And that's a physiological reaction to an event you're thinking about or imagining that's negative. And then it also goes into your breathing. People that are anxious don't breathe. And you want people to breathe, and you want them to breathe in a healthy way.
Yeah, connecting to breath. I mean, we must in order to live, but we don't realize the power of our breath and how it can literally bring us in this present moment, right?
Well, yes, and then there's the people that stop breathing when something bad happens, or they're not breathing, and that's not good either. So, working on that so that that's not a problem is important, or that it becomes automatic to breathe right. I tell people sometimes the practical aspect of you're walking down the street and somebody's going to assault you now and you haven't been breathing. So you got to run. Are you going to be able to run if you haven't been breathing? No, you're not going to be able to run. That's going to be bad. So breathing right would keep you in a good position so that you could do whatever you need to do to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So along the lines of getting to know you better, and we have about 10 more minutes before the show ends, do you mind if I ask you some quick questions just for fun?
Sure.
Okay. In your career, what has been your most memorable experience that you've ever had? One that has just stuck with you that you'll never forget. Too hard?
Yeah.
Maybe not
all,
the most memorable, just
and
a
I can't
memorable
always
one.
share them all either. That some of them I don't have a release to share, so I can't talk about certain
I
things.
meant for you in your whole career. Did you have that one moment that just stuck out? Like you had a really incredible experience with someone that changed your life, or you changed dramatically through your college time, or whatever that looks like for you, what was your most memorable that just pops up? Don't think about it too hard.
Well, it's just growing. Just constantly growing. And I think we always continue to grow. So that's part of the process, that we never stop growing. If we let ourselves continue to focus on improving ourselves and growing more, you won't focus on past experiences. You'll stay in the present and work on where you are now and where you want to be next. And kind of like my book reflects some of the past stuff, in the sense of what people have experienced and how that can help. And but each day is a new experience, so I try to have each day be something totally new, and I'm open to whatever takes place.
Yeah, beautiful. Outside of connecting to your breath and being in the present moment, what would be a few things that you would share with somebody who is just beginning their spiritual experience?
Hypnosis, meditation, those kind of things. Spiritual connections with people and things that matter to them.
Mm-hmm. How would hypnosis help?
It helps people wake up if they use it correctly.
Hypnosis has a lot of different judgments around it. Like you would make someone, walk around and balk like a chicken. That's not really what hypnosis is.
No, the idea is that when I learned from the hand clasp guy, that experience was a good example of how I wasn't listening. Mm-hmm. I wasn't paying attention. And if you pay attention, you grow from the right people. Now, if he was the wrong person, he would have said, now I'm in control. Not him, not me, him. He's in control. Now I've got you where I need you.
Mm-hmm.
But that wouldn't be somebody that's healthy. A healthy person is going to say, now you're in control because you listened and you got the results that I would get too if I did it.
How do you stay motivated in the work that you do? Motivated, inspired? What is it that keeps you going?
What keeps me going is the benefit that I see in the people that I help, that they get better and that things work out for them.
Yeah, that is so rewarding, isn't it? I think Natalie and I can agree with that.
Yes.
It's that's what keeps me going.
So your book that was just released is called Developing Your Supernatural Awareness, Connecting with an Interactive Universe. Thank you, Bill, for throwing that up. How can the listeners grab a copy of your book if they were interested?
They can either order it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or anywhere that they can get. They have a bookstore. They could order it.
Awesome.
And they just looking up the title of the book and my name will lead you to one of those places.
And just for record's sake, for those of you who didn't join us until later in the show, I did do a little spelling error on our guest's last name. So it is Woodard, not Woodward. So just take the W out. My apologies for that. And then also, how can the listeners find you online or even reach out to you if they were interested in your services?
My phone number is 603-673-2582. And my email address is drfwood@hushmail.com.
Awesome. And then you also have a website.
Yes.
And
Woodard Hypnosis and psychotherapy.com.
Okay, awesome.
.org, I mean.
Yeah, I was going to say I have .org. If you have a .com,
yeah,
that's
it's .org. It's .org.
Awesome. So good. Well, it has been really neat getting to know you. Very grateful for your time and your energy that you've spent with us tonight.
Well, maybe we can do this again down the road.
Yeah, let's get a hold of that book that just came out and we'll come up with some more questions.
All right, sounds good.
It will be fun. Well, thanks again for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Natalie, any nuggets to leave us with this evening?
So I have definitely picked up some interesting or some concepts from what you were saying, that listening is its own skill that's very, very important to develop. You've mentioned it multiple times through the show that you had realizations throughout your life that you weren't listening, or you needed to listen better, or the ability to even follow instructions. When you talked about that lesson from the that person that was teaching you hypnosis was, I needed to listen and follow instructions and lean into the experience versus like just not being fully engaged in it. So I second that in learning and growing in my own personal life, and for everyone to actually lean into the present experience. And if it bothers you, there's something in it for you. Expansion is actually when we're uncomfortable. We have to get uncomfortable to actually get beyond that to expand and grow. So things do not actually, expansion doesn't happen in your comfort zone. So getting out of your comfort zone. The other thing that I love about this topic is that our spirit, or the essence, or the stuff that's spiritual, the supernatural out there, it really feels like it's there to support us. And so I like that concept. That's one of my nuggets that I would say is the supernatural most often is there to support us.
Yes.
And it's pretty
That's
profound.
true.
Wonderful. Well, that wraps another evening of Soul Wanderings on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Thank you all for being here with us tonight. Thank you, Bill, for producing. And of course, to all of our wanderers, you guys are seriously the best. We'll see you all next week. Until then, be good to yourself and be good to each other. Good night.
Have a good one.